Jason Jones, ACT UP London, but you are from Trinidad and Tobago. When we talk about this country, we think about tropical beaches, tropical climate, very beautiful places. But Trinidad and Tobago is also the place where a tragedy happened. You are even talking about a Holocaust caused by AIDS.
Thank you. Well, what happened in Trinidad and Tobago at the beginning of the AIDS Holocaust in the early 80s was we found that Trinidad and Tobago suffered the highest incidence of death from HIV in that period before the virus was isolated and identified.
That means the beginning of the 80s.
Yes, the first case, who was a friend of mine named Jerry. First gentleman that passed away was in 1981. And subsequent to that, we lost, in my personal community, people that I knew in the theatre world, over 300 people passed over the next 10 years. We had the second highest incidence of mortality from HIV in the world, second only to New York City. So our community was decimated by it.
Trinidad and Tobago is one of the few countries in the Americas where homosexuality is still illegal and is punished with, in a very severe way.
Trinidad and Tobago is a former colony of Britain. We gained independence in 1962 from Britain. Unfortunately, the British colonizers left a number of draconian legislative laws against homosexuality on our books. So in Trinidad and Tobago, you can be jailed for up to 25 years for consensual homosexual sex. That law was left on our books by Britain when we gained independence. And out of the 53 Commonwealth states, over 40 of them still criminalize homosexuality, and those laws were left on our books from British colonization. So I believe that Britain has a duty of care and a responsibility to help with the dismantling of these hateful laws.
And the paradox is that now in England there is same-sex marriage, while in the former colonies there are still these laws.
Unfortunately, we've seen a polarization between the global north and the global south where LGBT human rights are concerned. We've seen a lot of very wonderful legislation being passed in the global north, marriage equality in Britain and America and other countries, and countries like Malta, which has had amazing legislation passed in the last 2 years regarding trans people's rights. Unfortunately, this has cemented homophobia in the 40 countries that still criminalize in the global south. What we are seeing is a schism between the global north and the global south. And for example, the new Prime Minister of my country, Trinidad and Tobago, recently spoke about gay rights as being fashionable. So I think we in the global north now need to be very careful about how we embrace our moving forward with LGBT human rights and how it affects people in less tolerant societies, because it does create more difficulty. I think if we're moving together as a community, a global community of LGBT people, we have to make sure that we're not leaving anybody else behind.
And now you have a campaign in your mind. Which one?
Well, I have just conceived a campaign called Silence Equals 40, and it comprises 4 different elements. One is going to be a cultural show in which we discuss human rights of LGBT people in the 40 countries that still criminalize homosexuality. We're also going to be doing workshops in conjunction with ACT UP London, the Human Dignity Trust, and I Want PrEP Now to discuss where we are at with the health of LGBT people. Also, we're going to be doing a reverse colonization of London. We're going to be having a flotilla of LGBT people from those 40 countries of the diaspora who now reside in the United Kingdom, and we're going to sail up the Thames with a petition to Westminster asking them to please assist more strongly in the dismantling of these LGBT legislations.
So the British government should work in these countries? How?
I think they have a greater responsibility in engaging with these governments. Of course, those 40 countries are sovereign territories, and there must be an element of respect for their sovereignty. But at the same time, I think there is a discussion that needs to happen around human rights that needs to be much more stronger from Westminster. Right now, they're not showing great strength. If you want to be a leading power, then lead.